Welcome back, everyone. After the lunch break, we hope you all enjoyed our hospitality. After listening to all the distinguished experts from the field, it is now turn for our young researchers to present their thought, ideas, and research in parallel session called the Thematic Track 2, Creative Cultures and Identity. This session will explore how youth creativity intersects with heritage identity and cultural expression. Today's Track 2 session will have the following team of experts: our session chair, Dr. Parul Kiri Roy, our session co-chair, architect Sanjay Bhandari, and the rapporteur for this session is architect Sushmita SP. Before we commence, I would like to introduce to you our session chair, Dr. Parul Kiri Roy. She's an architect, academician, and architectural historian who primarily engages with the idea of architecture as an outcome of occupied space of people's needs and experience of the built environment. Currently an assistant professor in the Department of Architecture, School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, she explores the correlation between education and the practice of art and architecture in our country. Haunted strongly by the holy specter of modernism, her pedagogical practice of teaching studio and her research involves a continuous engagement and contestation with terms such as vernacular and the modern. She has completed her PhD titled The Kacha Pakka Transformation, Modernization of the House in Rural India from SPA Delhi. She's also very actively engaging with marginalized communities through several social initiatives and is the head of Delhi chapter for the Council of Art and Social Practice, CASP, and the founder of INDES, Investigating Design. And I'd like to now introduce our session co-chair, architect Sanjay Bhandari, associate professor in the Department of Architectural Conservation at the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. With over a decade of academic and professional experience, he specializes in heritage conservation, temple architecture, and sustainable built environments. His scholarly work on temple architecture, Maratha architecture, and traditional architecture knowledge systems has been published in reputed Scopus indexed and international journals. In addition to his academic research, he has contributed to several government-funded research and consultancy projects, including initiatives supported by DST and other national agencies. He also serves as subject editor for the Indian Journal of Traditional Knowledge, contributing to global scholarship on architectural heritage and indigenous knowledge systems. May we have a round of applause for our session chair and co-chair? I would now like to take the opportunity to invite our session chair, Dr. Roy, for her opening remarks for the thematic track Creative Cultures and Identity.
Actually, the most important thing that I would just want to say here, because this is a track on culture and what is it? Creative cultures and identity. So the issue of identity is something that I would just like to bring up to begin with. How do we really define identity? Who are we as Indians? Is there a person who can just say that I am an Indian? And is that a final definition for who we are? But it may not be so, right? Because we all know that there is no one India. There is a lot many Indias within what we call India as the nation. What I'm basically wanting to flag here is that we should first really understand our cultural diversity. We should understand that we come from all kinds of places, all kinds of topographies, all kinds of climates, all kinds of languages, all kinds of ways of building, all kinds of ways of making cities, and they're all valid. And they're all special. And I think the need really in our country is to look for models within rather than without. So rather than looking out of our own space, our own place called India, we should perhaps be looking inwards. We should perhaps look for ways of doing things in our own culture before we begin to look outwards. Um, चले गए ना?
Yeah, of course.
Good afternoon, all. So I think session chair has already set a base for the beginning of this session. So I'll keep it reserved for the concluding remarks.
Okay.
So, so let's begin with the session.
Let's just, because we are
Yeah,
anyway.
okay. So we're running short of time, so each speaker gets 8 minutes to present, and after that we'll have a 5 minutes of question and answer round. So I request all of you to please wrap up your presentation within the given time. So the first presentation today for this session is the title is The Nocturnal City, Contemporary Cultures of the 24-Hour City by Darini S.A. and M. Arun Shankar. May I call them on stage, please?
यही है ना बस तो फिर ठीक है
A pleasant afternoon to all the respected members of the jury, co-presenters, and everybody present here. Myself, Dharni, from Sasi Creative Colleges in Coimbatore. I'm here to present my topic on the nocturnal city, contemporary cultures of the 24-hour realm. So I myself am not someone who engages much with the city at night, and this is largely due to the concerns about safety. But over time, I realized that the perception is not individual, but it's a widely shared opinion. This led to me questioning about how urban environments and design can influence our experience of the night culture. And that becomes the starting point of my study. So, in contemporary cities, we largely see that in today's urban cultures, the urban life tends to extend beyond daylight. So, this leads to the formation of the 24-hour system where past all our work culture, we tend to move towards leisure, social interactions, and which brings together our cultural identities. So here, my main motive and objective, or the aim of my study, is to analyze how urban design and strategies can bring together a safe, inclusive, and a vibrant 24-hour realm. Here, I have focused more on the evolution and the concept of a 24-hour city, the basis of the nocturnal urbanism, how it impacts a social life, and user perceptions of safety, comfort, and experience in the 24-hour realm, and strategies that can enable socially safe and architecturally reflective nocturnal life. So my study basically started off with literature reviews on different research papers and to basically understand what actually a 24-hour city is. And then I moved on to identifying places globally that have a very enhanced nightlife. I've tried to compare international studies with Indian studies and trying to derive architectural strategies that can be implemented in places that have the potential to have the nightlife. My major limitations of this study is that it's entirely based on secondary data and I don't own any of the content that I've mentioned here. And so the conclusions are very interpretive and they're all based on existing theories and literature. So the evolution of the 24-hour city was brought up by a sociologist, Murray Melvin, during the 1970s. He realized the transition between manufacturing-based economies to service-oriented economies where people wanted hospitality and nightlife to be more enjoyable. There are difference in opinions about nightlife. Some take it as a turn to, rest as a leisure. Some take leisure as an engaging activity where they move out of places, they travel, they get together, social interactions and all. So this difference in opinion altogether brought the evolution and the formation of the 24-hour city, where nightlife was also given equal importance, and the governance strategies were also brought about for the same. So there has also been a lot of diverse urban populations and youth. The youngsters also play a major role in bringing out an enhanced nightlife that eventually leads to the 24-hour city. Here, what I think a nightlife should, an active nightlife kind of supports employment opportunities, whether they're formal or informal employment opportunities during nightlife, tourism sectors, hospitality sectors, friendly places. When a place is family friendly, it includes the diversified age groups, whether they're elderly people, children. So when safety concerns all the sectors of a family, it eventually, the entire city tends to have the urban safety. And here there are many scholars, like Joshim scholar, he kind of argues that the nighttime reveals how the city actually functions. So the mask of the daytime, where people tend to go out, work, and they're more focused on that, it kind of falls away, and the social realities and the cultural identities of the place are revealed during nighttime. I'm also focusing on temporal urbanism. Temporal urbanism is the concept where, the city time tends to function based on the timely needs and necessity of the public. As Jane Jacob also mentions in her Eyes on the Street concept, that passive surveillance is also brought about during the nighttime, where there's a mixed use pattern of buildings and typologies of structures. So that's how architecture also kind of helps into the urban nightlife and enhancing the nightlife of the urban system. For my international case study, I have kind of my focus has gone into Copenhagen. Copenhagen is a place in Denmark where there is a lot of livability, safety, and sustainability factors that influence its nightlife. It has a very compact urban form, and as seen here, the youth population and the creative industries are what influence the nightlife there. They kind of are the central focus. I'm sorry. The central focus that brings about the cultural identity and the economical vibrancy to Copenhagen. They have a lot of focus on the infrastructural development there. While planning, they wanted to bring about the cycling infrastructure, so that the construction of the entire city, the planning of the city kind of follows the public's needs and necessity. So they have very short traveling distances between the infrastructures, and the nightlife, and I'm talking about the nightlife, many places that were once industrial or historical, they have historical values, they have been adaptively reused into economical hubs, or gathering spots, social gathering areas and all. Copenhagen also, they have a lot of focus on their nighttime transportation. So late night transit services, they ensure safety and convenience for the public. Their streets are very pedestrian friendly, so there's no interaction between the transportations and the pedestrian systems there. So the entire framework of Copenhagen kind of relies on how to have an environmentally responsible 24-hour functioning, and also bring about the cultural identity of the place. So these are some of the places in Copenhagen that have a very potential urban nightlife. And most of them are industrial places that have been adaptively reused for the same. So when I talk about nightlife in Copenhagen, they have a very enhanced nightlife, but they've also made sure that the crime rate of the entire city stays in a very minimal level. So this is something that any place with the need and necessity of a nightlife can involve. When we talk about Indian context, I've gone with Bangalore. Comparing Bangalore and Copenhagen, they both have a very the professional life of Bangalore and Copenhagen are very similar. The youth population also contributes a lot to the nightlife of the cities in both cases. Here we can also, since Indian context, Bangalore, we can say that it has a very evolving economical aspects of the nightlife. Their government frameworks are still in the process of evolving. And these are some of places in Bangalore that have initiated their nightlife strategies, pedestrian-friendly designs, youth-oriented nightlife hubs, and shopping streets, each street dedicated to each typology of things that people are in need. So some of the constraints that kind of limit the development of Bangalore's nightlife, they have a very dispersed urban form. It's not very planned, and it leads, like, there are a lot of long travel times, so people during nighttime travels, they kind of find it difficult. Safety concerns, they influence the nighttime participations, people's mindsets. And it has also been ranked as one of the least livable cities according to the Economist Intelligent Unit. And this all yeah, okay. So it kind of influences the crime factors too. So there have been policies that have been brought about in Bangalore. I have given a comparison of how different factors in Copenhagen and Bangalore correlate, and what strategies can be brought about in Bangalore when you're talking about Copenhagen, how it influences Bangalore. So these are also some of the general strategies that can be brought up, whether it's permits, sound regulations, mindful about the transit integration, spatial architecture, also the public realm surveillance, the eyes on street concept, layered public lighting strategies, and etc. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Thank you.
Darini, thank you. That was very concise, and also your analysis, the table at the end and all of that, the comparative analysis was fairly well done. Um, but as is my job here, I guess, I would like to actually first begin with questioning the basis of this kind of a study, right? In the beginning, I thought I understood that you're almost proposing a nocturnal city concept to be a solution for safety issues in our cities. Okay, that's what it sounded like in the beginning,
Yeah.
although you weren't asking this kind of a question very directly.
Okay.
So, I mean, as somebody who also teaches, I would first want to tell you that, when we begin research, we should either have a set of questions that we are out there trying to answer. So I assume that your question was that, how can we make our cities more safe?
Yes.
And you were then trying to propose the answer as, let's make our cities 24-hour cities, which will perhaps make them safe, right?
Yeah.
So, so if that was the case, then it did not become quite clear eventually,
Oh.
right? Also, some part of this I've already said in my opening remark, which was a remark only, because that's all I could do at that moment. But when we are trying to look at our cities, okay, and all the cities that make up our cities, Indian cities, each of our cities are very different from each other. Every city has its own character, right? Bangalore has a certain kind of character, right? So while you said that people living in Bangalore and people living in Copenhagen do kind of similar kind of work, and that was perhaps the reason why you picked up Copenhagen as a city to compare and learn from. Even then, Copenhagen seems to be a very small city, because if it only has the number of people living in it as you mentioned, our cities are like, what, 5 times, 10 times? Maybe Delhi would be like, I don't know how many times, right, in terms of population, and hence in terms of density, and hence in terms of the urban sprawl of the city, which kind of makes things messy, right? The numbers makes things way more messy for our cities. So simply saying that let's learn from Copenhagen, and these are the kind of strategies that are there in Copenhagen, and we can kind of take them and apply. Maybe parts of the city, parts of Bangalore can apply it, right? And in the first half of the day, somebody was talking about the last Professor Sandeep was talking about informal settlements and learning from the informal, right? So we have to also take into account that our cities, a large part of it is informal, right? So sorry, I'm Hindi. So in that regard, a lot of this may not come through, right? So yeah, that's my 2 bits.
Yeah, it's a nice topic. I think that confusion I also have. I just want to ask that, is it a necessity to have such type of thing in the present working culture, or is it, are you suggesting it, proposing it, or whatever you found through your research? What do you think? Is it a necessity in the urban environment to have such type of 24/7, or are you suggesting, या फिर रिसर्च, मतलब आपका आइडिया वो बिगिनिंग में जो मैम कह रहे हैं ना, रिसर्च क्वेश्चन आपको फ्रेम करना चाहिए, so that whatever recommendation you are saying, and as in from the architecture, design and planning aspect, what is required in case there is a necessity of such type of concepts in any city, possibly. I mean, we have diversity, as the chair has told earlier. So in that case, I mean, can this kind of a general idea or concept can be curated in for the Indian city context, or can it be implemented with just by the framework and without having any sort of architectural intervention in place, or any planning intervention in place, because in the daytime you are using that space for some different function, and nighttime you require some different ideas. So for that, I think our role, we need to understand that as an architectural understanding of these kind of spaces, how they are going to work out. So that you can redefine your question, and I hope when you submit your final paper, so it will come out. Otherwise, it's nice. So I think audience can also ask a few questions.
Anybody in the audience who would like to? मेरे पास और हैं. I mean, I can keep going.
Actually, in Norway, if you are taking, it is a Nordic city which is in darkness for the entire 6 months. That is the reason you can connect the nocturnal life to that. Otherwise, people tend to get sad. That is seasonal affected. That is why Nordic countries are more nocturnal. Plan city, we are more in the equatorial region. So we have defined day and night where our hormones they work accordingly. So India might not, your system, your body system does not go well with the 24 hours.
That was a very important point. Thank you for pointing that out. That is extremely important thing to understand. Bas? Any other questions? Yeah, over there. Thomas, you need a mic. I can
be loud?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think the idea is to redefine this nightlife in the Indian context, because in cities like Mumbai, say for example, where I come from, there are a lot of city processes which are happening over the night. Yeah, and in that particular scenario, it may not be that we as a normal person who understands that, okay, going to a seafront or going to a garden becomes like a social life for us. There are these processes which are continuously happening, and hence the cities are the way they are in terms of functioning and all of that. So where does this definition of nightlife, social processes and all comes into picture when we talk about Indian cities per se? I mean, if those elements could be included in your study as well, probably that would make not only the research a grounded research in our context, and also elaborate the essence of what do we understand by nightlife, and not just by saying that it's a leisurely activity that you are trying to seek for the people, but will also include this processes, activities, functioning, which keeps the city running in the first place. So I think that definition, redefining, would be more crucial at this stage.
So you should basically
Yeah.
look at already existing nightlife in Indian cities. I think that's also something which you should be doing.
Yes, ma'am.
Bas?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dharini. Now, the next presentation is on the topic Managing Transport, Heritage Conflicts in Historic Urban Cores towards a Planning Framework for Inclusive Mobility by Saurabh Singh and Dr. Karan Bapete.
So good evening, everyone. My research topic is managing mobility heritage conflict in the historic core of Varanasi, application of a planning framework for the inclusive mobility. So my name is Saurav Kumar Singh, and I am from and I am currently pursuing Masters in Urban Planning from SP Delhi, and I'm writing this research paper with my mentor, Mr. Karan Barpete. He's an assistant professor in SPA Delhi. And so in this topic, my main concern was relies on those historic cities in which the conflict may be arise between the transport infrastructure and the heritage precinct. And then after looking into this conflict between the transport infrastructure and the heritage core, and for our proposal, we suggest some planning approaches. Through that planning approaches, we can trying to resolve those problems. So here in this slide, the basic but the most important definition, what is tangible heritage precinct, and the transport infrastructure in which we are looking into it. So the question may arise that why this research important to me. So this research is important to me because it preserves cultural identity, balancing development and conservation, economic and social benefits, supporting sustainable urban growth, and informing policies and governance. So moving to the rational part of it. So in the rational, we all know that in the heritage rich city, which culturally significant geography and narrow street networks were there, dense mixed land use, and the rapid growth of both the resident and the floating populations may rise congestions. And to resolve this intervention of large-scale infrastructure projects such as metro, widening road, and multimodal hubs, and the intervention may cause the conflict between the land use and the heritage. So this study mainly focuses on those conflicts and aims to develop integrated context-sensitive planning strategy that align transport as well as land use. So from the past 10 years, there are several examples where heritage structure get affected or demolished due to the transport intervention. Like in Varanasi, 300 plus structure get demolished for the corridor and the road construction, or the road widening. In Puri, 400 plus structure get demolished mainly due to the road widening or the corridor construction. In Delhi, metro vibration affects 100 plus historic buildings. And also we all aware about the controversy which was going on in the Mathura, Vrindavan, and in the Ayodhya. So need of this study. So because there is a lack of study in this domain, and the problem statement is that transport infrastructure project is not aligned with the heritage conservation. So moving to the area of the research that has evolved over time. So now in this slide, I'm covering the area of the research which has evolved on different time frames. So firstly, we're looking into the area of the research in a specific domain, like the transport specific research or various timeline heritage conservation specific research. And then I mark the conflict area between these two, that at which timeline the conflict may arise and what are the reason behind it. So I found that in pre-industrial and in earlier industrial area, mainly the transport intervention, transport infrastructure system get evolved. But when the modernization due to the rapid expansion of the highway and the flyover construction can cause disruption. But in the late 20th century, when the MRTS, BRTS, TOD were introduced, so at that timeline, the disruption is huge, and that timeline, the research can talk about the conflict. So moving to the next, so broader area of the knowledge. So in these slides, the urban planning knowledge base integrate land use, transport, heritage, environmental policies, and community needs. So it connects multiple domains such as transport, mobility study, heritage conservation, urban planning design, policies and governance, sustainable development, and tourism. And all this led to integrate context-sensitive planning approach that balance transport infrastructure and heritage conservation. So moving to the aim. So the aim of the research is to systematically review the interaction and conflict between the transport infrastructure and the heritage conservation in the historic core, and to develop the integrated context-sensitive planning strategy that achieve or balance of planning to mobility and cultural preservations. And the objective is like, firstly, we review the literature and the case study. The second is to analyze the impact. The third is to evaluate the policies and the governance. The fourth is to identify the best practices, and then we propose the planning framework. So these are some scope and limitations. The scope is like I reviewed global and Indian studies on the transport heritage conflict, and the limitation is like our research is based on only secondary data mainly. So these are the methodologies. So in this slide, I show the step-by-step process which I followed for my research. So firstly, I defined the research problem, that how the transportation project are creating conflict in the heritage areas, and then I study the report and the research paper to understand the gap. Next, I formed the question that what are the issues that cause the conflict, how the planning and the policies help to fix them, and then after that I made a framework or metrics that link causes, effects, and possible solutions and connect within the global goals. So finally, I discuss the finding and give recommendation for the better planning and the coordinations. So moving to the next, so in this slide, I just list down, sorry. So in this slide, I have just listed down 20 research paper for both the transportation and the heritage sector, and then I marked the key issues caused through those conflicts. So the key issues are like the structural damage, archaeological disturbance, visual obstructions, loss of authenticity, and many more. There are so many factors. These are some issues. These are some issues which affect the conflict between the transport and the heritage. So mainly like structural damage, archaeological disturbance, demolition and encroachment, and so on. So moving to the national case study. So this slide shows a comparison of the 12 national case study from the cities like Varanasi, Jodhpur, Delhi, Pune, Jaipur. So each of these example highlight how the transportation project like the road widening or the traffic expansion have directly affect nearby the heritage area. So we can see there is in most cases problem like encroachment, traffic pressures, and vibration damage creates serious visual and structural conflict in the historic cities. So from this study, it is clear that uncontrolled vehicular movement and the poor coordination between the transport and the heritage planning are the main cause of the conflict. So moving to the international case study. So in this slide, I am showing the I am showing international case study comparison, which covers cities like Paris, Athens, London, Beijing, and the factors or the conflict type are the same as we talked earlier. So in this case example, like as you all aware about the Kashi Vishwanath temple corridor. So during Kashi Vishwanath temple corridor construction, approximately 1400 houses and several century-old temples get demolished due to the project development, and there are various issues. And in this case example, the visual this one is the example of the Tulsi Bagh. So visual obstruction of heritage site because of encroachment. And so in this slide, I am showing the conflict severity matrix from the various national and international case studies. So this table include different parameters like the visual, structural, functional, or social economical conflict, and have to mark the severity level index. So this is why I actually done in my thesis as assessment. Okay. So these are some core insights and recommendations. So transportation projects often damage heritage areas and dispute local communities, made worse by weak laws and poor coordination. To manage this conflict management framework, which start with the mapping heritage and transport route, then doing earlier impact check screening to catch the risks. So these are some framework which I have. So these are some key findings and planning recommendations, and moving to the planning frameworks to avoid the conflict between the transport infrastructure and the heritage core in the historic city. So this one is the planning framework for the historic city, which I have prepared while considering each and every aspects or factor which were considering while doing any intervention of the transport infrastructure in the heritage cities, and trying to fulfill the gap which we will find out. So firstly, we will do with the problem identification and the baseline assessment. Then we do earlier impact screening of the heritage building. We look into the multi-agency coordinations, and the fourth step is to provide design alternatives and layered mitigation strategies. And the fifth is to community participation and the social acceptance. The fifth one is the implementation with the heritage safeguards, and the seventh is to post-construction evaluation. So I'm concluding it like in planning, trade-off up to some extent is acceptable in planning, but when it go beyond the limit, it might harm the city. So currently what we do in our city is like we move towards a transport led planning, but we need to focus on heritage led transport planning. So in that case we reduce the trade-off. Thank you so much.
सौरभ, लास्ट में तुमने मेरा दिल जीत लिया हाँ, बाय सेइंग कि डेवलपमेंट तो हेरिटेज लेड होना चाहिए, ठीक है? दैट्स व्हाई यू टुक द केक. बट basically all throughout you've been trying to tell us that there is something called transportation, there is also heritage, and when they start coming together, it becomes a little bit difficult to handle, right? While I appreciate your paper, okay, so very thorough job, research, बहुत literature reviews up is immaculate, okay, lots of data mining, you do very well, okay? But I have a more fundamental question. Where are you from?
I am from Varanasi.
हाँ. So Saurabh, now you will answer my more humane question. Huh? Data, great. Okay, you have all the data, that more than what we need actually for your paper. Huh? In your lived reality, तुम्हारी अपनी जिंदगी की reality, जो वाराणसी वाली है, दिल्ली वाली नहीं, ठीक है? Because he is a student at Delhi, so your Varanasi life. Come, tell us a little bit about this conflict from being a Varanasi Vasi.
Okay.
Huh?
So like in Varanasi, there is a lot of development, or we can also say in there is overdevelopment. So like trade-off up to like I mentioned, trade-off up to some extent is acceptable up to a threshold. But when it go beyond it,
Saurabh,
sorry.
Hold. Come out of your academic space. I am asking you कि तुम वाराणसी के रहने वाले हो, वाराणसी के वासी हो, तुम मुझे from ground बताओ. I would have actually, see, if you would have said, नहीं, I am not, you know, you are telling me about Varanasi, but you are not from Varanasi, my question would have been very different.
So ma'am,
okay, I would have said कि भाई कोई field work कर लेते, थोड़ा ground reality जान लेते. But you are yourself saying, I have shown Varanasi, I am from Varanasi, right? So I am saying, when you move as an inhabitant of Varanasi as a city, right? What is your experience? Where is the conflict is what I'm asking. I'll give you an example, but after your answer. Okay?
So ma'am, like from the past few years, tourism get increased, and also there is a demand for the mobility. So okay, transport infrastructure, intervention will happen there, that is good. But as a Varanasi citizen, what we felt ki the city lost their character. And that was the main concern as I am bought and brought up there. So our main concern is the city character, that how we can retain that character while developing our infrastructure or doing some transport intervention. Tourism, like development of Varanasi, like development तो होते ही रहेगा. Development कभी development का जो डेवलपमेंट वाराणसी में होता रहेगा, लेकिन द थिंग इज डैट कि
शहर तो नहीं बदलना चाहिए,
शहर नहीं बदलना चाहिए, उसका कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स जो है, उसकी जो आइडेंटिटी है, उसको हमें रिटेन करना होगा. लाइक एज वी ऑल नो कि वाराणसी को हम लिविंग हेरिटेज और ओल्डेस्ट लिविंग हेरिटेज सिटी का उसको दर्जा प्राप्त है फ्रॉम द Uttar Pradesh state government, and also UNESCO recognized as the oldest city in the world. Right. So when we are doing a lot of intervention there, so we lost that identity, and that was the main important thing.
So what I'm understanding is that you're almost saying that your opinion of the Varanasi redevelopment project is that it was too much. इतने की भी ज़रूरत नहीं थी, right? We could have had a better sort of more friendly negotiation between the older fabric of the city and what is now there,
Yes,
right?
and one
But
thing,
मेरा सवाल ना बहुत ही सिंपल सा था, ठीक है? जो तुम हमेशा academic space में ले जा रहे हो, but that's fine. It's good to know that you're able to think so much. My point was very, very simple. The way I understand our roads, Indian roads, all Indian roads in all Indian cities, and our attitude to moving on our roads. Okay? I think as a culture we negotiate very well with each other on our roads. Okay? We don't like traffic, ऐसे जा रहा है, वैसे जा रहा है, but the negotiation is happening. So there will be a elephant also moving on the road, there will be autos happening, and everybody will be moving through. So I was actually coming from a space really from the ground. I wanted to try to understand कि वाराणसी में इतना क्या conflict हो भी रहा है. जैसे I also live in a place which is having heritage tag, right? Everybody seemed to be moving, and everybody moves, and everybody negotiates as they move. So we are a set of people culturally who are quite willingly able to negotiate our space, so as to say.
ma'am, like in current scenario, when you see Varanasi, there is a lot of intervention happen. But at the ground reality, the thing become more complex. So why this is happening? This is just because there are various factors instead of just widening the road. So we look into those factors like the parking, we provide the parking facility while widening the road at the same time, and also the circulation pattern, the traffic management, and so on. So we need to focus on so many factors. And also in Varanasi, there is no any delineated heritage precinct or heritage co. So there is a gap. So we need to fill it.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Very quickly, one question allowed. Only because I just want to have a input instead of a question.
When you were saying about mobility, obviously Indian city have lot of different kinds of mobility, right? So for Varanasi, you need to look at the type of mobility which is suited to that place. Instead of questioning that why we are using the character, what would we adding to the character by adding to the different way of mobility? That might be the solution to your question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah. Thank you, Saurabh. Now moving on to the next presentation, Hallucination of In-Between, Reinterpreting Liminality Through Tribal Aesthetics and Migrant Narratives by Shayan Chatterjee. Please stick to 8 minutes.
Okay, I will take less. Okay. So how do I start?
Also, after this
23.
session, we'll have a group photograph of all the presenters with our session chairs. So please, I request all of you to stay back
Yes. Yes.
till we're done.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Shayan Chatterjee, and actually this thesis, I would say, or this kind of a paper, what I'm trying to write, is coming out during my days in Bauhaus in Germany, where I was studying and working. And this title, Hallucination of In Between, was given by my thesis guide, and I told him that this doesn't sound like very much like a research paper thing, but he said, be brave and don't change it. And I didn't change it, I kept his words. But the next thing what you're reading is actually what I'm working on. So I will try to show the creative part of this project or this research which I was doing there. Is this, I was trying to understand or interpret liminality in this image, what you can see, if there is something called inside and outside. And then, there is something always in between. So if there is something known and unknown, and there is something called fear, if there is something called reality and fantasy. There is something called hallucination. So and it goes on. And it goes on, and because, for a research, for a work or a research project, for a thesis, for a project, anything you do, you need some sort of inspiration, you need some sort of study. So I had to do that study, and and this study was actually trying to understand what architecture limits you in these days. And it's sometimes when we see architecture, it's more about what so-called architecture we are studying in our pedagogy. It's more about stability and fixed programs. But when we look at the indigenous people, it's not more. It's very much against that. Actually, they're very much. The spaces are flowing into another spaces. You can see, and these are actually. So I was trying to study a community, the Shohrai community from Jharkhand. They're very, and this indigenous people actually, they are doing these beautiful artworks in top of in the walls actually, and artwork is not only giving us certain kind of information, but it's also like a cultural DNA. If you like to unwrap it like an onion, you will see so many layers inside it. So I was trying to study and learn from that. All these colors, all these forms, and because this paintings actually looks very much like hallucinatory. So that's how this topic, this hallucination of in between comes from. And in between means because they are drawing them on the walls. Wall is a space in between, like it's a thing in between inside and outside, And the main purpose of this research was to see that if we can embrace ambiguity, if we can go deep inside ourselves, what ma'am was telling a few minutes back, we look inside, and if that can inform us to help us to do this design. So if we look at this works done mostly by women, and you will see that they're drawing this kind of murals or paintings in their houses, and it's a very beautiful place. But if we study a little bit, we will see because of lack of job opportunities and money, they have to travel, and then I have to learn about and inform myself about migration. And when they migrate, they not only come from this kind of a place, and they have to come and do this kind of a hellish work, which was very much bothering me at that point of time. I was doing my research. So I was thinking, what if I give them some sort of a power through my research thing, that they can design something for themselves. So the methodology which I used was this cultural analysis, and then I took the kind of ideas they have for doing this speculative drawings. They're doing it as a ritual, and then they're making. It's a part of an architectural project, so it was like iterative physical model making. So I will show all those things here, a little bit about it. So what I understood by talking to them and taking some information by them is that something which is working as a as an activity in the day, it changes at night. So where people are actually cooking in the morning, they're actually sleeping there at night, which, in generally what we are doing in so-called architecture, we are building this giant skyscrapers and all these kind of things. You can't do that. You cannot go to a bathroom and sleep, but they're doing it so easily. So architecture is flowing. So architecture becomes very organic, it's very human, and that information itself, I think, it's very much enough to understand. So these are some of the drawings I'm showing which came out at that particular point of time when I was doing my research. So these drawings becomes a spatial hypothesis on how they become spatial. I will show it a little bit from these drawings. Then I start making this iterative models, physical models. I went to those spaces and I was working and talking with them what kind of space they would like to feel and do things. So at the right side, you can see that's a model of a school. It's very difficult to understand what if a school looks like this, but it is possible if we talk to people and if we go and sit in their own space and try to work with them. And then those becomes they become like, this idea becomes like a germ, you know, and they certainly flows, and you think about, because you are bothered about their living conditions. You are bothered about living conditions means after they leave their thing and they come, what I showed, you know, you are bothered about that. And what if they would like to have a cultural place, or if I call in a certain way a museum designed for them, what would that be looking like? So then it becomes a germ for them, and slowly it tries to grow like that. And this is where I'm trying to interpret that these women themselves are making this kind of spaces, and you know, they were very happy when I was working with them and showing them there. And it's a photo montage, you can understand, photoshopped and from those physical models. But yes, and slowly this becomes very iterative spaces. And from that, because it's architectural project and architectural thesis, you know, I have to put it into a site plan. And I cannot skip that. And then the site plan kinds of come to, it's more like interpreting that site plan. What if this space becomes that, and you know, but it is always like this. These spaces are in between a closed space and a landscape area. So you are like always flowing in between, and you're lost in this kind of a situation. So, and then they become actual plans, and then, you know, of course, I had to put all the facilities where things would be there. And the right side top corner, you can see that's a school, and that was the model I was showing you there. So yeah. And of course, a little bit about the space, and slowly that might become iterative. So that was my hypothesis, actually. What if so-called museum doesn't look like a so-called museum? What if a so-called, you know, a so-called cultural space doesn't look like a cultural space, but more than that, they carry that identity. They become, you know, self-explanatory, and you know, you go there and you want to live and you want to work, and it becomes poetic, and that's all. I don't know if it's a research thing or not, but yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. That's all.
Appreciative and not critical. Thank you, Shayan. I really enjoyed your presentation. You have ended up touching all the right chords within my heart. So while I appreciate that you started with some kind of a theoretical thread, and I really appreciate your very intuitive process, which uses drawing as a method to research, analyze, and think things through conceptually.
Yeah.
Right? So it, by the way, takes great courage to do the kind of drawings that you have done, which are actually research-based drawings. Like, you're trying to think about something, right?
Yeah.
And they are all things that are very theoretical. You know, when you're talking about liminality between the rural and the urban, and then migration as people being in that liminal space between the rural and the urban, they belong to the rural, but they have to go and work in the urban, all of those kind of liminal things that happen in between, or between tradition and modernity, which is where they get hung. So you are kind of in that theory, but then you are trying to, you know, think it through, not by doing literature review, but by making drawings.
Yes.
Right? So that itself takes great courage, and I thoroughly enjoyed that very dialectical process between theory and practice of drawing, through which you then went interpretative and then actually came to some kind of an architectural form. So I very much enjoyed your process. Actually, I just have a very fundamental question. Is this some kind of a design thesis? Is this some kind of a PhD research work?
Master's thesis.
Master's thesis.
Yeah.
But you were supposed to come up with an architectural form at the end of it, is it?
Yes, definitely.
I see. So basically, this is a design-based thing.
Yeah, it has.
So I have to grant you this much कि भाई creative culture वाला part तुमने manage कर लिया बहुत बढ़िया से, okay? Like जो इस title में है, creative cultures and identity. I would say your method is very creative, and I very much enjoyed that. Actually, I have nothing very critical to say. because like he said कि ये तो आपका domain है, तो मैं बहुत ही biased भी हूँ. Um,
I think, yeah, not a critical thing, because this research, the type of research we all as an, I mean, from the architectural domain, we miss this, from the idea, conceptualization, and then giving a design, which is thoroughly has gone through that process, where we are not depending on any, the process of research which we follow in the other
I have that,
scientific.
but I'm not showing it here
Yeah,
because
but-
nobody sees that in any way. I don't see it.
So maybe this you can take it forward, because this is required for any other. I mean, the project can be shown as a. I mean, there is a lot of research goes behind any architectural design. So if it is resulting into a desired outcome, so that it's a great example. So nothing critical about it.
Anybody? Any questions? Anjali has a question.
Yes,
Anjali?
sure.
Yeah, जोर से.
I can hear.
So
Hi.
I enjoyed your presentation, and now that I've gone through it very well. So I think what Parul is trying to politely say, and I will put it directly, is that you have a theory, you have a theoretical framework,
Yes.
and because of where you are located, you were studying in Germany. There is a lot of thrust on theoretical framework
True.
and its application on a site, right?
Yes.
Now, that is their pedagogic method. They require you to do that, because
Yes.
I also have undergone that similar training. But what this work you can take it forward in the sense is that what the decolonial theory is trying to say, that our own culture and our cultural practices require their own theoretical framing to come from the ground above. So I think that is where you can take that kind of lax. So there is a very strong theoretical framework positioning. There is a very strong theoretical site-based condition, which
Yes.
are originating from its own culture and cultural history. But the two don't really connect
Yes.
strongly like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yes.
There are some gaps in between.
Yes.
So maybe now you can take this work forward and see how what you have learned from the ground above can help inform liminality from your own research from the ground, rather than you trying to force
Yes.
from the top and forcing it on the ground. So that is, I think that is where the potential of the paper and the research lies. That how learning from the ground
Yes.
you can inform liminality.
Yes.
Liminality can also be understood based on my understanding of a case-based approach, and how a particular condition, which doesn't originate from the global north but is a global south condition, can inform the discourse on liminality.
Yes, it's a very wonderfully you have phrased it, because this is something I'm looking for too, actually, and that is also something, it's not a very easy thing to do also, because
And that is the issue of studying
yes,
in the European
yes.
framework.
I think the only guy who has done it, he's also European and done it in a European way. It's Bernard Trumi. So where he has done that. I'm finding my own ways. I think it will take some time, but I totally agree what you said. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Yes, thank you so
Anyone
much.
else? No questions?
Any questions? Yeah, sure. Sorry.
I think what she correctly said, that when you are doing it somewhat like a theoretical base, you need to know what is the base of that theory. If
Yeah.
you're saying that there is a lot of colors and hence they are doing it in such a manner, you need to know that their landscape itself is barren, and hence they are adding color to everywhere, their clothes and their walls and everything, right?
Yeah.
So you need to go little deeper down, one step
Yeah.
deeper down to that roots and the causes for that whole theoretical part, and hence such kind of because the way we see built and unbuilt, it is anyway there since long in our culture.
Mhm.
So you need to know that from where that built and unbuilt is coming. By it is already rooted in their culture.
Yeah.
So I think that particular part you haven't touched upon. So I think if you will go
I haven't
little
touched it
deeper
here,
down-
but I studied it very well, actually, what you're saying. So that's why I was saying painting doesn't only tells you about something, it is like a DNA. So you can, unfold it and you can see how, it actually, that is the cultural identity. So if a painting which we see, oh, it's so beautiful. It's not only that. That's the problem. That's the problem. It's beautiful. That's a problem because we appreciate it. Somebody comes, takes a picture, sells it to, Paris, and earns a lot of money. But these people, they are coming and working here. So I did this research not only like studying. I went there. I studied, with all these things, and also with a great, I would say, emotion with those. And yes, yeah, that's it. But I did it. Yes. Yes.
Just one last thing. So what I think she's saying is the deconstructivist approach, where you deconstruct the idea of the built and unbuilt, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. So you need to question itself when you're using these terminologies. You need to question how unbuilt and built needs to be defined in the first place, which is what the deconstructivist approach kind of. So you could use that as your
True.
philosophical
Yeah. Yeah, I understood this part. Yes, I will keep in mind and I would, do it. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you, Shayan, for sharing your great work with all of us. Now, our next presentation. Yeah. It's on the topic Creative Cultures and Vernacular Identity in the Himalayas, Reading Katkuni Architecture through Vastu Vijnan, Harshit Vasu and Sandeep Sharma.
Okay, ma'am. So good afternoon, everyone. Myself Harshit Vasu, and I am from Hamirpur, Himachal Pradesh. And as you have guessed, as I am from Himachal, and Himachal is famous for its Katkuni architecture. So for my master thesis, I am doing something on the hybrid modules. And during that study, this thing came up, and it is a part of that study, like it's a supporting thing. So my topic is creative cultures and vernacular identity in Himalayas, reading Katkuni architecture through Vastu Vijnanam. So the motivation of this research comes from the growing interest in sustainable and climate responsive architecture today. Architects are increasingly looking towards traditional knowledge systems and vernacular building to understand how earlier societies responded to environmental conditions. Vastu Vijnanam represents a traditional theoretical framework that discusses principles such as orientation, spatial organization, environmental harmony, and balance between built form and natural force. At the same time, vernacular architecture traditions such as Katkuni represents practical building knowledge developed by the communities through long-term interaction with their environment. So this research attempts to bring these two perspectives together by comparing spatial principles described in Vastu with architecture characteristics documented in Katkuni buildings. The purpose of this comparison is not to prove that one directly influenced by the other, but to explore whether similar environmental strategies appear in the both systems. So the main aim of this research is to analyze the conceptual relationship between Vastu Vijnanam and Katkuni architecture. So Vastu Vijnanam represents a traditional architecture knowledge that provides theoretical principles for planning buildings. It focuses on orientation towards cardinal directions, spatial hierarchy with buildings, and maintaining harmony between the built spaces and the environmental forces. Katkuni architecture, on the other hand, developed as a vernacular system in the Himalayan region. It reflects practical solution to the challenges such as cold climate, mountain terrain, and seismic activity. So the research therefore examined key Vastu concepts like Diknaraya, which refers to orientation towards cardinal direction, and Brahmsthan, which represents to the central spatial zone within a building layout. So let's have a look over the study area. So the geographical focus of this research is in the western Himalayan region, specifically the state of Himachal Pradesh. Areas such as Kullu and Kinnaur are well known for their traditional Katkuni architecture. These regions present several environmental challenges that influence the building design. The climate is generally cold with strong seasonal temperature variations and occasional snowfall in higher altitudes. The terrain is mountainous and steep, which affects the settlement pattern and construction techniques. So The Katkuni architecture developed as a response to these environmental conditions. The construction technique used alternating layers of stone, masonry, and timber beams. The stone wall provides structural mass and thermal insulation, while the timber layers act as the horizontal reinforcements that improve the structural flexibility. So the combination creates a resilient structure that performs well during the earthquakes while maintaining indoor thermal comfort. The spatial organization of these houses also reflect practical and cultural needs, including storage spaces, livestock areas, and living spaces arranged across multiple floors. So Vastu Vijnanam is one of the important traditional architecture knowledge system developed in the subcontinent of India. So the word Vastu refers to the built environment or dwelling space, while Vijnanam refers to the systematic knowledge or science. So the principles of Vastu were documented in several classical architectural treatises such as Mayamata, Manasara, Samrangana, and Sutradhara. These texts describe guidelines for the site selection, orientation of the building, spatial organization, and construction techniques. One of the central idea in the Vastu is that the architecture should maintain harmony with natural and cosmic forces. Buildings are therefore planned according to the cardinal direction, solar movement, prevailing winds, and environmental conditions. So before moving further into the discussion, it is important to briefly understand some key concepts from Vastu Vijnanam, as these ideas from the theoretical framework for the comparison developed in this research. So as shown in table number 1, several important terms help us to explain how organization is understood with the traditional Vastu philosophy. One of the most significant concept is Brahmsthan, which refers to the central zone within the Vastu Purush Mandal. In architecture planning, this space is often kept open or minimally obstructed in order to maintain circulation, spatial balance, and symbolic energy flow within the building. Another important concept is Dik Nirnaya, which refers to the orientation of the building according to the cardinal directions. This principle helps to regulate solar exposure, airflow, and overall environmental comfort in the building spaces. The concept of Panch Mahabhutas representing the 5 natural elements, earth, water, fire, air, and space, also plays a role in shaping spatial relationship with the traditional planning approaches. So, Katkuni is one of the most distinctive vernacular construction system found in the western Himalayan region. The name Katkuni reflects the construction technique itself. Kat refers to the wood, while Kuni refers to the corner joints or interlocking construction. The buildings are constructed using alternating horizontal layers of timber and beams and stone masonry. The layering construction system creates a strong structural framework. Timber band act as a horizontal reinforcements that improve flexibility and allows building to absorb seismic forces during earthquake. At the same time, the thick stone masonry walls provide significant thermal mass. This helps maintain warmer indoor conditions during harsh Himalayan climates. Overall, the system demonstrates how vernacular architecture adapts to climate condition, terrain, and locally available resources. In addition to its structural system, Katkuni architecture also demonstrates a distinctive spatial organization that responds to environmental and social conditions. Traditional Katkuni houses are usually constructed as multi-story buildings. The vertical arrangement allows efficient use of limited land available in the mountains. The ground floor or the lower floors are typically used for the livestock shelters and storage spaces. The arrangement helps to generate heat, which indirectly warms the upper floor during the winter months. The upper levels contain the main living areas, including family rooms, kitchens, and sleeping spaces. These levels receive better sunlight exposure and ventilation, improving indoor comfort. The spatial organization of Katkuni houses therefore reflect a balance between functional needs, environmental adaptation, and social lifestyle of Himalayan communities. These spatial characteristics become important when comparing vernacular architecture with the spatial principles described in Vastu Vijnanam. So this slide presents the central comparative framework developed in this research. The purpose of this comparison is not to suggest that Katkuni architecture was intentionally designed using classical Vastu rules. Instead, the aim is to examine whether similar spatial principles appear in the vernacular architecture developed through the local environment knowledge. As shown in the table 2, several conceptual correspondence can be identified between the two systems. The first example is orientation. The Vastu principle of Dik Nirnaya represents aligning building according to the cardinal direction in order to regulate the sunlight and airflow. Similarly, many Himalayan houses are positioned on the south-facing slope to maximize the solar heat and gain during winter. Another interesting relationship appears in the concept of central spatial organization. Vastu planning describes the Brahmsthan as the central zone of the building layout, while Kathkuni houses do not strictly follow a mandala grid, but they often include central circulation to gathering areas that connect the internal spaces. These observations suggest that the vernacular architecture may reflect environmental principles similar to as described in the traditional architectural theory. So as we move forward, okay. So let's get to the conclusion part. So to conclude this study, explored the conceptual relationship between Vastu Vijnanam and Kathkuni architecture of the Western Himalayas. The objective was to not claim a direct historical connection between the two systems, but to rather examine whether similar spatial principles can be observed between the traditional architecture theory and the vernacular building practices. The comparison reveals interesting correspondence. Both systems demonstrate strong environmental awareness, particularly in relation of orientation, climate adaptation, and spatial organization. These principles appear in different forms within both theoretical text and vernacular building traditions. When examined through conceptual framework of Vastu, many of these spatial strategies appear consistent with broader traditional architectural ideas about balance, orientation, and environmental harmony. Therefore, this research highlights the importance of studying the vernacular architecture not as a cultural heritage, but also a valuable source of architectural knowledge relevant to the contemporary discussions on sustainability and climate responsive design. Thank you.
Harshit, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Harshit. You're very brave, I must say. You're brave because what you just did is to bring the theory and the practice of architecture, the classical and the folk of architecture, and the text and the object of architecture, you're trying to bring it together. Yes. So that part was brave, okay? So essentially when we talk about these things, we tend to talk about these things as a binary, right? So we say that, acha, ye classical hai, to ye vernacular hai. This opposite that, right? So you're brave because you try to say, okay, I'm not going to put them in opposition, but I'm going to say if they're having similar things going for them, yes, right? So for the longest time, I thought that eventually you're going to show me how one borrows something from the other, okay? Like we were waiting for you to actually say that, okay, here is the plan of a particular household and here is the mandal, the Vastu Purusha Mandala, yes, yes. And then you will put it together on a slide and say, dekho kuch to ho raha hai, So we were kind of waiting for something like that to happen. So while I appreciate your courage, I do have to say that your gyan on Vastu Vigyanam is rather limited, okay? You will come to, if you get into these texts, okay, and I know this because I got one of my final year students who did a dissertation and she was interested in understanding Vastu. And I said, forget about other texts written about Vastu in English. And you cannot obviously read Sanskrit, but you can read the translation of the actual Sanskrit text, right? So I think you needed to do a little bit more homework on Vastu itself. You will come to, and I'll tell you why I'm saying so. When you start understanding where these texts come from, okay, Mansar, Samaranga Sutradhar, ye sab jo, these are ancient texts, but they come from somewhere, they originate somewhere, yes, okay? And you will come to understand that these texts are also context specific. हाँ, so ये ऐसा नहीं है, वास्तु का ज्ञान ऐसा नहीं है कि वो सारे देश के लिए एक समान है. It is not the same for the whole nation. Actually, national boundaries weren't even there when these texts were written, yes, right? So you will come to realize that these texts are context specific, which then takes us to this fundamental question about theory comes first or practice comes first. And then if you try to answer that, it kind of becomes quite obvious after some little bit of thinking it takes, and you realize that well, somebody must have built it better. They built it even better, best. When the best happened, it gets written down as a text, right? That then it gets like institutionalized, so as to say, right? And that is what Vastu is. So matlab yahan pe, while there was great potential in your topic, but I have to say you didn't manage to go full way. ठीक है?
Okay.
कोई सवाल? Audience? अरे कहाँ गई? मैडम यहाँ Nobody, huh? Nobody. Okay.
Thank you, Harshit. Now the last presentation for this session, track 2, is Visualizing the City in Motion, Railway Corridor Visual Quality and the Railway Visual Interface Zone by Akansha Bhardwaj and Sandeep Sharma.
Where it is. This, it's not getting right. I think it's not moving. My hands are very big.
PPT में
51. Slide यहाँ से होगा ना?
yes ma'am.
Okay. A very good afternoon, respected chairpersons. A very good afternoon, respected chairpersons, distinguished scholars, and my fellow researchers. My name is Akanksha Bhardwaj, a research scholar at NIT Hamirpur, and I am presenting this research conducted jointly with Dr. Sandeep Sharma, my supervisor. The title of the research paper is Visualizing the City in Motion, Railway Corridor Visual Quality and the Railway Visual Interface Zone. So at first, I want to thank you, the International Seminar on Designing Future 2026 committee and the reviewers for giving me the opportunity to be here and present my paper in front of all of you. So when we begin, the urban infrastructure has historically been conceptualized primarily in terms of engineering efficiency or the mobility performance. However, our contemporary urban design discourse increasingly recognizes the infrastructure, urban infrastructure, as an urban interface which mediates between the movement and perception. Railway corridors are particularly significant in this regard because they function not just as transport routes, but also as scenic gateways to the city. During the deceleration and acceleration phases of trains approaching or leaving from the stations, passengers experience extended visual exposure to surrounding urban environments. These movements are especially important because travelers are often cognitively more alert and at their peak during arrival phases or the departure, actively interpreting the visual cues that shape their first impressions to the city. Despite this perceptual significance, railway corridors are rarely considered within urban design frameworks as experiential spaces capable of shaping city identity. So in this research, we try to introduce the railway visual interface zone, defining the urban space before and after the stations as the area where continuous visual observation establishes city image development. So existing urban design theories have largely focused on static observations, it is a monument and somebody is visualizing it, appreciating, not appreciating it, but the vision point is static. Or when we talk about movement, it is about pedestrian movement when the movement is very slow.
However, the visual perception of passengers traveling through the cities by railways is different. The visual experience of the passengers is more dynamic, and it is generally through the framed windows, elevated viewpoints, and oblique angles, while the movement of the train creates a continuous sequence of rapidly changing visual scenes. This phenomena produces a dynamic perceptual condition where urban environments are interpreted through sequential glimpses rather than sustained immersion. Yet, current urban design frameworks rarely account for such motion-based visual perception, thereby overlooking the role of railway corridors in shaping cognitive images of the city, while when we talk about identity formation or long-lasting impressions, the cognitive state of a brain when the motion shifts, say from the train is moving in speed, and it slows down. So our cognitive alertness improves, which create lasting impressions. So those few seconds or few moments create lasting impressions than the static vision point. So yes, there are these two images. One is of Karjat and one is of Vienna. Karjat is actually a beautiful city, very beautiful city. If someone has visited, it is near Mumbai, and it has beautiful scenic views, waterfalls, and everything. And what if you are not getting down at Karjat? You are not actually going to that city, and you're moving and you're going to reach Mumbai. But when you pass through this city, what is the kind of impression you're going to register? So yeah, and when we talk about being a global mentor and global global image creation, when we talk about generation of a global creation of the image of our country as whole, the cities. Indian Railways is like third largest railway system in the whole world, and we are there are 2.3 million passengers every day commuting through railways, right? And when we talk about international passengers, they are also 92 lakh per year, which is around 1 crore. See, 1 crore pairs of eyes and 1 crore mouths going out. They are moving to Mumbai and they are seeing Karjat, and what are they are going to talk about it. So yes, this is why it is very important. So this is just a little sketchy, theoretical frame of. I need a mouse. So here, as we can see, this is the red line, which depicts the train movement of the train, and then there is these black. This is the movement where the train movement is fast, and then again there is this light orange color which shows the train movement is slow, and this is that distance which is the most effective for a long term image generation in human brain when the cognitive alertness is maximum. And so what shall be visible through these possible vantage points? There should be a glimpse of city's cultural, architectural, infrastructural, or say social or environmental identity, a glimpse of city image. But what is actually visible through those possible vantage points are, you say, maybe a very beautiful, heavy railway station with heavy architectural, very thick architectural vocabulary, standing just like a sculpture mass, and all those things which should be the backstage of the city, all that is visible when the cognitive alertness is maximum. So yeah, a very unpleasant, undecorous, uncared for urban landfill. That's it, which provides an incomprehensible image of the city. So the aim of the research is to develop and empirically validate a novel theoretical and analytical framework termed as the Railway Visual Interface Zone for assessment and enhancement of visual quality along railway corridors of railway station precincts. The objectives to fulfill the aim were to establish theoretical foundation for RVIZ through literature review, to identify measurable visual quality variables. Yeah. So these were the objectives, and I did a systematic literature review, and total 803 records were identified, then 70 studies were selected. Those all were multidisciplinary, and they included urban perception, visual aesthetics, city image, railway infrastructure, or transit-oriented environments. So this is the course. From 1960s, it was first time established that cognitive mapping leads to development of city image. Then with the townscape theory of Cullen and numerous other theories, we eventually led to major design qualities in 2000s, in 2004 and 5 by the works of Reed Ewing and Susan Handy. Then eventually, we came to transit-oriented development or urbanism, in which nodes these stations are treated as nodes, but their visual experience remains unexplored. So a survey was conducted for about 100 passengers, and the average of the two to know the stretch, the actual cognitive brain stretch that the span that is covered, that should be taken in consideration for RVIZ, and total 3 minutes was ultimately their span. And when we do the basic acceleration calculations, the distance comes out to be 0.75 kilometers before railway station and after railway station. So the railway RVIZ framework includes 3 interacting layers. Physical environment, in which we talk about all these heritage visibility, green reintegration, architectural coherence, infrastructure, and all that. And this creates the perceptual mediators such as the legibility, imageability, visual coherence, sequential narrative continuity, which ultimately leads to the cognitive outcomes such as city image perception and emotional response. And yes, so it's over. Yes. Okay. So actually, I tried to create a visual quality perception index for that particular identified stretch, which includes these heritage salience, green reintegration, landmark visibility, architectural coherence, infrastructure maintenance, and visual complexity as the indicators which can be measured. And these can be measured by image mapping, by GIS, and also on the Likert scale. This was done using phenomenology. And yes, this can be, RVIZ can be used for to extend the planning beyond the station footprints, to strategically position landmarks, integrate green infrastructure, and eventually that is going to improve the city image that is created while traveling in a train. Yes, that's it, ma'am.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
It's
Yes,
a
sir.
nice, interesting, topic, very, essential also to understand. Um, I have some brief observations, because we were waiting for your final conclusion, that whether it is a case study based analysis or you are just generally trying to make this framework. Is it applicable?
Sir, I'm trying to make the framework as well. I have 5 case studies in hand, and I'm working on those. So I have not presented it here.
Yeah, because that is required. Because
Okay.
I mean, you are saying 0.75 kilometer from the both sides.
0.75 kilometers, both sides.
So I mean, while
On-site
moving,
survey.
have you observed anything with respect to that? How much distance for a serial vision or a vision, clear vision while sitting on train? For a better experience, what is the buffer you require from a track to a building line?
Sir, what what I was trying to do was the linear image, a linear stretch that is being that is in the front of our eyes or any passenger's eyes while he or she is traveling. So I focused upon the linear stretch of the railway corridor.
Yeah, I mean for that.
What he's saying is that
And
this
the width,
yeah.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
what I see right here or there or
Yes.
far away will also begin to impact my perception.
That is indeed, I would take
Yeah.
care. I will study
You should
more about
really
yes,
do
yes,
that in your-
yes,
in your
yes,
study.
ma'am.
Yeah.
मेरा एक है अब तक क्योंकि मैं बोल ही पड़ी हूँ तो I have to just point out one thing. This is going to come out as rather critical, okay? I think you're prejudiced. You're prejudiced about the kind of view, because the kind of images that you showed as the best kind of view from a train. अच्छा आर्किटेक्चर दिखना चाहिए, वाटरफॉल दिखना चाहिए. भाई हमारी देश तो यही है, उसकी ज़िंदगी भी दिख ही सकती है. Because the image that you did show of the city near Mumbai, it may not be pretty, right? But it is our reality, right? So I mean, I don't know how we will reconcile all of the images that make up our reality, and if we want to share all those realities with travelers, some Indian and some maybe not Indian, all those are questions that need to be asked. But I just want to just point out that, it's not always a pretty picture. Okay?
Yes, ma'am, you are absolutely right. But my intent was only that city is actually very nice and beautiful. Then why to showcase the worst part of your city to
Beauty
the
lies in the
guest?
eyes of the beholder. Okay? Any further question, sawal? There is one.
I just wanted to add if you would have pointed out towards because the railways in India, like if we are talking about Indian context, railways came as not as a means of transport, but rather a means of commerce.
Logistics.
Yeah, so
Logistics.
very looking towards bringing out the best of our Indian cities, but rather facilitating the free movements and all. So that's why and cities continue to evolve, and that's why we see these structures, even the railway stations and the corridors. I feel like that's why they feel very industrial and very massive. They have their very superimposing impact. On the other hand, if we see Britishers also made heritage railways as well. So we may argue that they put up very good views of the cities, but the intent of the railways in India was never to bring out, and we have been carrying that legacy till now. So yeah, that is.
Yeah, but I would like to add that right now, in 2022, Amrit Bharat scheme was launched, under which in 2023, it is a 25,000 crore project, in which 1,337 railway stations are being covered. And we are working upon station buildings, and what is wrong in working just a little beyond that station building and make it more comprehensive.
But I think what he's saying is the question, the inquiry is not in the right place. आप ये कह रहे हैं कि जो existing railways है, जो जहाँ वो जाती है, हम जो वहाँ से देखते हैं, वो सही वो चीज़ हमें नहीं दिखानी चाहिए. तो अगर वो सवाल है, तो आप ये बोलो कि अभी तो जो है.
हाँ, we will make
अब जो
yes.
transport corridors बनाए जाएंगे, those railway transport corridors have to be designed.
Yes, ma'am, you are.
वो जो बोल रहा है, वो he is saying we have a colonial heritage, right? He has a valid point. There is a colonial history to the the fact that railways happened to us. What you are saying is another time zone altogether.
Yes.
You are comparing two very different things. That is where your project has potential as well as you fall in your own trap. So
Yes.
policy बोलो कि अब जो
Yes.
हम बनाएंगे, they have to be designed from the purpose of showcasing. वो बोल रहा है, he is saying that it was designed from a functional perspective. Material has to be transported with because the Britishers wanted to take the best teak from the interiors of the country to the port and take it to UK, right? That was the simple purpose of
Yes.
rail, right? But अब हमारे लिए वो purpose of making the roads, railways is different.
Yes, ma'am, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because actually,
वो framework अलग
yes, actually, my final PhD is going to deliver a kind of guidelines.
क्या फंस जाते हो?
Okay.
वो फोटो दिखा के ना कि फोटो में से ये
अपने वाला दिखाओ जो आप कर रहे हो ना केस स्टडीज दैट इज व्हाट यू नीड टू स्टार्ट पुटिंग आउट
Okay.
राइट सो जैसे हिल्स में है ना टॉय ट्रेन बनाई वो था फॉर अम्यूजमेंट फॉर शोकेसिंग
Yes, ma'am.
तो आप वो फोटो दिखा के ना जिसमें इटली दिखता है और जिसमें इंडिया दिखता है वहां जाके फंस जाते हो वहां पे आपका कॉलोनियल माइंडसेट बहुत क्लियरली रिफ्लेक्ट होता है तो उससे बाहर निकलने की कोशिश करें
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'll keep in mind, and also I would like to meet after. Yeah, we need to discuss a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akansha. Thank you to all the presenters, our session chair and co-chair. Thank you for sharing your researches, ideas, and knowledge on this platform and leaving us with plethora of avenues in future to think about. May I now request Dr. Anjali Mittal to kindly present a token of gratitude to our session chair and session co-chair. And after that, we all shall have a group photograph. You can come in the center. We'll anyways have a group photograph. So. I'd like to request the presenters to please join us for a group photograph, and then we'll break for a 15 minutes tea break. That's the rapporteur of our session, Sushmita.